Welcome back to Power Play now as we all continue to grapple with and process the tragedy in Nova Scotia. The COVID-19 pandemic still ravages people around the world, ravages economies. It's changing everything. Today, the Prime Minister announced a new $350 million support fund for charities and for nonprofits. Again, will it be enough to support organizations providing crucial services to some of Canada's most vulnerable people? And you just heard that extraordinary interview with CTV chief anchors Lisa Laflamme and Nick Beaton, who lost his wife. Nick said, why are frontline workers like his wife experiencing shortages? Let's find out. The Social Development Minister Ahmed Hussen joins us now from Ottawa. I think we've got him. There's obviously technologies. And Minister, great to have you here. I hope you and your family are well. And I know you share all of our empathy for the people of Nova Scotia who are going through this. And I want to start there because Nick Beaton, who just spoke to Lisa Laflamme, he's the husband of Kristen Beaton. She was one of the victims, a nurse. She was murdered. She was pregnant. She was a frontline worker. And he said she did not have enough PPE. He said she had 2 masks a day. Why are frontline workers still experiencing this essential shortage?
Well, thank you so much, Evan, for having me on your program. I really want to send my sincere condolences to the family, to all the victims in Nova Scotia. Our hearts break out for them, and they are in our thoughts today and every day. I just wanted to really highlight the fact that we're doing everything that we can to get PPEs for our frontline workers and those who are serving the most vulnerable in our communities. We're working every single day to procure personal protective equipment from global markets, as well as ramping up Canadian domestic production of PPEs. And it is an ongoing struggle, but we are delivering as much as we can, working very closely with our provincial and municipal counterparts.
But in retrospect, and I know this question has been asked, and I've heard the answer. Canada shipped 16 tons of equipment to China in February. Now, I appreciate in the WHO you're trying to contain the virus where it is most prevalent. I get that. But before Canada ships that kind of personal protective equipment to China, would we know that it is heading our way? All the reports said we have to prepare. Clearly, we didn't have enough here. Did your government check with provinces to make sure nurses and doctors and frontline workers had the equipment before 16 tons went to help others?
We made sure, look, at the end of the day, COVID-19 will be defeated by a global approach. We have to work with every single country to make sure that we defeat this pandemic together. PPE, there's a global environment where there is dramatic increase in the demand. In that context, we're fighting every single day to procure as much PPE as possible from the global market. But at the same time, we have invested a lot to make sure that Canadian domestic production can be ramped up. It is ramping up, and many, many Canadian companies have stepped up and really answered the call for service to deliver more PPEs locally as well.
I guess, you know, I'm concerned that what we hear from the federal government doesn't match what the frontline workers say. Frontline workers are rationing. Frontline workers are nervous. And then we hear today also that Canada sent 2 planes to get equipment from China, and they came home empty-handed. Like, how does that happen? How do we send a plane to China and then they say, sorry, that the supplies are gone? Can you explain how that happens?
No, it wasn't a question of the supplies being gone, Evan. The Prime Minister addressed this question in his press conference, and he indicated that the problem is that, you know, China has strict requirements on how long planes can be on the ground in the airport. So after a short period of time, our planes had to take off because the supplies were taking a long time to get to the airport. But we will continue to follow up on those orders. We are continuing to deliver orders to provinces, making sure that both ourselves and the provinces are able to secure that PPE through global supply chains. But as I keep also emphasizing, equally importantly, is to make sure that we ramp up domestic the domestic ability to produce PPEs, and we've been doing that, whether it is gear that is needed by health workers, but also those who are serving our most vulnerable members of our community, the homeless community, and every single day.
Minister, can I just one last thing, and I want to get to some other sectors, but can I get your thoughts on the use of the emergency alerts in this tragedy? Should the province of Nova Scotia have alerted citizens of this imminent active shooter threat by using the emergency alert, not just Twitter and Facebook? Is there a protocol on that is national?
The RCMP is in the middle of an ongoing investigation about what happened. They will look at all aspects of what happened during this senseless tragedy, and they will be addressing those questions. So I want to defer to them and not comment on an ongoing investigation, Evan.
Minister, the Prime Minister unveiled a $350 million emergency community support fund today. Can you shed some light onto how this program will work? Are you talking about loans here? Are you talking about just giving an aid package? How does it work?
This is strictly for nonprofits and organizations and charitable sector organizations serving the most vulnerable members of our community in the context of COVID-19. These organizations are being called on to deliver more services than ever before in a context in which they themselves are experiencing a dramatic drop in donations and a dramatic drop in the number of volunteers that they can rely on to deliver those important services. So we are answering their call to help them to improve their capacity, increase their capacity to deliver to the most vulnerable members of our community who are seriously impacted in a negative way by COVID-19.
All right. I do have to leave it there. There's lots on the go here. Minister, I do appreciate your time today. Please take care. We'll take a short break.